Alright, so after Gnarlroot and Agira, we have an option. We go to the Molten side or the Garden. Most guilds, including ours, will go to the Molten side because Volcoross is probably the easiest boss in this instance. Gnarlroot is pretty easy, but there are things that you can mess up and people can die easier. But I honestly think Volcoross is probably the easiest boss in this entire dungeon, or in the entire raid, just because of how simple its mechanics are. For this boss, we are going to be running our single target setup. A lot of people I've seen ask in the Warrior Discord and other places, is it okay if you run Roar? I think you should get used to running Spear at this point. Previously, in the last tier, even in single target, I was running Roar because it was a marginal 600 DPS increase, and even on top of that, that's whether or not you're able to get the full maximum value out of Spear of Bastion in that window. So using Roar to some people was even a DPS gain. But because of our new tier set, because we're buffing Bloodbath so much and we're running Reckless Abandon, and it's doing double damage on top of our cooldowns, on top of the increased crit damage, not running Spear of Bastion and Elysian's Might is simply a large damage loss you don't want to miss out on. So we're going to be running Spear of Bastion and Dancing Blades, and our full single target setup here. But the thing to note, realistically, is look at the difference between this setup and our raid setup. It's just these 4 talents. These 2 and these 2. That's it. Otherwise, you're playing the exact same unless you need to do, because you're not doing AoE. So, the rotation is simple. It's very straightforward. There's not too much to worry about. But getting into Volcoross itself, the fight is basically the same thing as Heroic. The only new mechanic in this entire fight is that after the Coiling Flames debuff runs out, there is a soak that you have to do. You'll have 10 members of your raid, each left and right, set into groups. I'd recommend having those are the soaks there. I would recommend having 5 melee and 5 ranged to the left and to the right, so you can have a ranged group and a melee group to soak these. They don't do that much damage. You see they only did about 150k or so. But what you really need to be careful on is your movement, because this circle does not do that much damage to you. However, you can easily kill other people as it ramps up. Because it is ramping damage and doing more damage to you, you're taking a little bit of damage. But if you walk over somebody with this and they take more than 1 tick, they're pretty much guaranteed to die, as it's in this later coiled phase. But you have plenty of time to get into these soaks. There's nothing really to worry about. And it's honestly a very simple boss. The only thing that I found interesting is the rotation of our abilities, right? One thing I didn't think about too much in terms of our rotation is, obviously, previously I thought the best thing for me to do is always rampage into Bloodbath. Rampage into Bloodbath. Always, always, always. However, after doing some testing and feeling it out and looking at the numbers, that is not the case. Unless we are using Spear of Bastion, our priority is going to go Bloodbath, Execute, Rampage. Bloodbath, Execute, Rampage. And when you get into the Execute phase of these single target bosses, you're going to be pressing these buttons one after another. It is a very easy and simple 3-button rotation. The only times you do not follow this rotation and you rampage to Bloodbath exclusively is when your spear is down. And the reasoning for that is the amount of amplified damage we are getting with our Spear of Bastion from the guaranteed crits, make it a DPS loss to not use as many globals as we can, getting as many bloodbaths as we can within our Spear of Bastion window. Otherwise, you feel free to completely send your executes as soon as you get them. But otherwise, this fight is very, very simple. You can, if you want to, you see this the Coiling Flames debuff, you can actually reflect a tick of this debuff on you With Spell Reflect, you can reflect 1 tick, and then the rest of the damage will be, remaining damage will be reduced. So if you get the Coiling Flames debuff and you're feeling kind of scared, like maybe a healer died on your side or something, towards the last 2 seconds of your Coiling Flames debuff, if you pop your Spell Reflect, it'll reflect 1 tick and then last through the entire rest of the soak, and you'll be big chillin'. Warrior is incredibly tanky in this fight. But otherwise, in terms of cooldown usage, what I would recommend is we're going to essentially send everything on cooldown, including our potion. You want to send your potion with all of your cooldowns at the start with Lust, and then here you're seeing the rotation, and you'll just see it for the rest of the video, which is I'm going to be executing, rampaging, bloodbath. Execute, rampage, bloodbath. And I'm just going to do that over and over again because we're running the Massacre talent that reduces the cooldown of execute by 1.5 seconds. We are always going to have plenty of time to get that execute in every single time within that 3-button rotation. One thing you do need to note here in this situation is if you get a tail slam here, right? If you get a tail slam here, if you have the circle, the first thing you need to do is always be the farthest of your party to the left or right, whichever side you're on. And you have to make sure if you start getting the tail slam on your side, you give your team plenty of room. Because let's say in that situation, I was here too close. If I panic or something and I move to the right and my debuff isn't in the soak phase yet, you are very likely to kill your teammates with this soak. So once again, you have plenty of time. You got plenty of time. My guy calls, he's going to soak it solo because he's a rogue, so he's cloaking it. You have plenty of time, don't worry. These initial ticks don't do that much. The other thing, I guess, to note about this fight in terms of how to position yourself is the tail will always put out 3 lava waves. 1 at the very tip, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the base when it slams down. So this middle section is always going to be free. But to note, because the platform is curved, it's not going to follow the curve, right? So you need to line up your movement with this middle section. I'll go back to the previous slam here with the soak. So I'm lined up here, so when the tail slap comes down, the rest of my melee that are soaking with me are still going to be safe from that slam, because it goes tip, middle, base, right? Other than that, this fight is very simple. There's not too much to worry about. You slam the boss, don't cleave anybody with your debuff, and then get in other people's soaks and soak with them. Communication is also very key here, because you want to make sure that if someone is going to immune a soak, you're not going to walk into their debuff, because it'll just kill you. But otherwise, Loot Pinata. 100% a Loot Pinata. This boss is way easier than Agira, especially even in pugs and stuff like that. All you have to do is make sure that people are back here to soak these bombs every time. Otherwise, it'll do a big damage. And you don't want that. But otherwise, this fight, very simple, very easy, very chill. And as long as you remain cool-headed, lava, get it, you'll be big chillin', no worries. Boss die, and it even drops a couple good pieces of loot. It drops shoulders and boots, which we can both catalyze into our tier, which is pretty good. The Coiled Serpent Idol that does drop off this boss, I picked one up just because in case they buff it, I wanted to have it. It's okay in single target, but so far I haven't been impressed with it at all. But if you have nothing better, like you're still struggling to get a Razans, feel free to grab this over Razans and have fun killing the Loot Pinata, because it is a dang easy boss. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.